The Dragonback Series by Timothy Zahn. Book 6. Dragon and Liberator. Chapter 20. After only 2 months of being fully awake, as Allison sometimes referred to it, Tanim didn't consider herself very good at reading human expressions. But after these last few days aboard the Advocatus Diabli, she was getting reasonably good at identifying anger. And Neverland was angry. Probably as angry as she'd ever seen a human being get.
"Unacceptable, Lieutenant!"
he ground out. He was standing behind his desk, glaring across the polished surface at the young man standing stiffly in front of him.
"Completely unacceptable!"
"I agree, sir," the other said, his voice as stiff as his body. "The conduct and performance of the Brumgas and Valaga left a great deal to be desired."
"That's not what I meant!"
Neverland glared at Frost, who was standing silently at the other side of Neverland's desk, and shifted his glare to Harper, standing a little ways to Frost's right.
"But as long as we're on the subject, Harper..." "What do you want me to say?"
Harper countered. Of all of those in the office, he seemed the calmest.
"I already told you that Patrick Chikook had his doubts about some of his people. Obviously, he was right." "I don't want you to say anything,"
Neverland told him.
"I want you to point the traitors out to me so that Colonel Frost can throw them out the airlock."
Neverland looked back at the lieutenant.
"And while he's thinking up names, I want to hear about our former Star Force Wing Sergeant Langston."
The lieutenant's eyes flicked to Frost.
"There's not much to tell, sir,"
he said. His voice, if anything, had gone a little stiffer.
"Really?"
Neverland asked, looking at Frost again.
"I understand he was off his post in the starboard weapons bay when Morgan and the Kadar killed everyone else in there. Coincidence?"
"He left his post to try to contact the control complex," the lieutenant said. "He thought the one in the weapons bay had failed. He was on the intercom at fire control when the attack took place."
"Lucky for him,"
Neverland said.
"I also understand he walked right past Morgan when he first sneaked aboard without recognizing him. Was he looking for a working intercom then, too?"
"I read that report," Frost spoke up before the lieutenant could answer. "It looks like he was simply preoccupied with other matters and never actually focused on Morgan."
"He didn't focus on him."
"Morgan's KK-29 had already been cleared," Frost said. "There was no reason—"
"Cleared by your men."
"No reason for him to expect an enemy to pop out of the thing," Frost finished stubbornly. "And bear in mind a couple of dozen Brumgas passed him too, and didn't think anything of it."
"Brumgas are incompetents,"
Neverland growled.
"They expect something more from Malison Ring mercenaries."
"We have Langston under confinement while we investigate his performance," Frost said. "If it turns out he acted improperly, we'll deal with him."
"And if it turns out he's acting with Morgan?"
Frost's face darkened. "Then we'll definitely deal with him."
"Very commendable of you,"
Neverland said acidly,
"considering it was you who brought him aboard in the first place."
"And it was Harper's friend, the Patrick Chikook, who brought the Brumgas aboard," Frost countered. "And you who brought the Valaga aboard. If we're going to start passing out blame for this fiasco, I think there's more than enough to go around." Neverland's eyes flicked to the lieutenant as if he suddenly realized their quarrel had an audience.
"You're dismissed, Lieutenant,"
he growled.
"Return to the Foxwolf and find Morgan and the Kadar."
"Yes, sir." Turning to Frost, the lieutenant threw him a crisp salute. Then he turned and strode out of the office. The door closed behind him, and for a moment there was silence.
"Well, gentlemen,"
Neverland said, sitting down at last in his desk chair.
Suggestions?
Obviously, the first thing we need to do is get the rotten apples out of there,
Frost said.
starting with Morgan and his friend.
And how exactly do you intend to do that?
Harper asked.
Lieutenant Pickering's already tried the sensor route without getting anywhere. You really want to send your men into that hole gap area to hunt for them?
I was thinking more of sending in some serious firepower,
Frost counted.
If it didn't kill them, it would at least keep them pinned down.
I understand Pickering and the Brumgas tried that too,
Harper said.
The problem is that the Kadar knows the ship far better than we do. So what do you suggest?
Neverland asked him.
Maybe we can draw them out some other way,
Harper said.
I could try my Virgil Morgan impression, see if I can get Jack to show himself. At least maneuver him into a trap where we can grab him. Grab?
Neverland asked, raising his eyebrows.
Not kill. Grab,
Harper said firmly.
If the Kadar's not with him, we'll need a live hostage to draw him out.
He smiled tightly.
Besides, the Patry Chickhook still wants to talk to Jack about his friend Allison Cana. Does he now?
Neverland said, his voice suddenly thoughtful.
Did I ever mention that I called the Patry a few days ago after we went on Echo?
Harper shrugged.
You said you'd get it. We're going to. And I did,
Neverland said.
Would you like to know what he told me?
It seemed to Tanim that a hint of frown crossed Harper's face.
I assume he confirmed my story. Actually, I never talked to him,
Neverland said.
Somehow the communications to the Chircook family estate were always out.
Harper grunted.
That's Brumgan efficiency for you. Perhaps.
Neverland lifted a finger, and suddenly there was a gun in Frost's hand, pointed squarely at Harper.
Or perhaps it was someone else's efficiency,
Neverland went on quietly.
Someone with the resources, say, of Braxton Universis. So Braxton sent you to track me down, did he?
For a moment, Harper studied Neverland's face, as if he was trying to decide what to say. Then he gave a small shrug of his shoulders.
Actually, my job was to locate Allison Cana. He has a whole army of other people working on you. I'm flattered,
Neverland said.
What's Allison Cana to him? A corporate thief,
Harper said.
She's stolen an especially important trade secret. He wants it back. Of course he does,
Neverland said, in a tone that suggested that he didn't believe a word of it.
Well, we'll see. Colonel!
Keeping his eyes and gun on Harper, Frost reached over to Neverland's desk and touched a button on the intercom.
This is Frost,
he said.
Close and drop ship.
Wait a minute,
Harper said, the first signs of concern and uncertainty crossing his face.
What are you doing? If you're fronted for Braxton, he must have a way of tracking you,
Neverland said.
That's why we just spent 6 days chasing our tails through hyperspace, actually. Now we say goodbye to your ship and head for the rendezvous point. This isn't it?
Harper asked. This time there was no doubt about the concern in his face.
You didn't really think I'd take you anywhere important on nothing but your word, did you?
Neverland asked scornfully.
I hope Braxton's people bring enough supplies to have themselves a party. That's all they're going to get here.
S&A closed,
a voice came from the intercom.
Confirm drop. Drop confirmed,
Frost said. Tanim didn't hear anything, but she felt the duct around her give a slight lurch.
S&A away,
the intercom said. Drifting free and clear.
Acknowledged,
Frost said. He touched another intercom button.
Ball ships, you're cleared to proceed to rendezvous point. Repeat, all ships to rendezvous point. Go on Echo when ready.
There were a dozen acknowledgments from a dozen different voices.
May I ask what you intend to do with me?
Harper asked as Frost shut down the intercom.
That's entirely up to you,
Neverland said.
If you behave yourself, you might even live through all this.
Harper lifted his eyebrows.
Really? Really?
Neverland assured him.
You know a great deal about Braxton's security setup. Knowledge that could come in handy when I'm ready to make my move against him.
You really think I'll give up any of that?
I'm sure you will,
Neverland said casually.
With the proper persuasion, of course.
There was a beep from the intercom. Mr. Neverland, all ships except our fighter escort have gone on Echo, the Advocatus Diaboli's captain reported.
Thank you, Captain,
Neverland said.
Signal the escort to follow and take us out.
He clicked off the intercom.
And now it's time for you to go back into storage,
he added, gesturing to Harper.
The guards outside will escort you to your stateroom. As you wish,
Harper said, standing up.
You realize, of course, that this little maneuver has just given Morgan and Dracos more time to sabotage the Foxwolf.
Hardly,
Neverland said.
It's only another 2 hours from here to the rendezvous point. I doubt even they can do much damage in that short a time.
Not to mention that they've already done as much as they can,
Frost said. He smiled.
Though not nearly as much as they think they have.
But that's not your concern,
Neverland said.
Goodbye, Mr. Harper.
Goodbye, Mr. Neverland,
Harper said. Inclining his head briefly to both Neverland and Frost, he turned to the door and keyed it open. Peering through the grill, Tanim caught a glimpse of several armed humans waiting outside in the corridor. The door closed behind him.
You think he'll behave?
Frost asked, putting away his gun.
I doubt it,
Neverland said.
But he hasn't got the time or resources to make the kind of trouble he'd like to.
You should still let me kill him now.
We'll wait,
Neverland said firmly.
An interrogation would be useful, and it might provide us an opportunity of seeing how the Valaga handles such matters.
As you wish.
Frost made a face.
In the meantime, we still have Morgan and his Kadar to worry about.
Yes,
Neverland said, stroking his cheek.
The shame we didn't bring one of the other Kadar Shantine ships along. We could have transferred the Foxwolf's personnel to it and given our new ship some target practice.
That would have been nice,
Frost agreed.
But we can still have half of it. Once we're at the rendezvous, we could transfer everyone to the troop carrier and then open the Foxwolf to vacuum. That should do the trick.
Eventually,
Neverland said, a bit doubtfully.
Remember that the Kadar knows the ship. If there are vac suits or safe rooms anywhere aboard, he'll know where to find them.
A temporary fix only,
Frost assured him.
We've already removed all the Foxwolf's life pods, and any other oxygen supply they find isn't likely to last more than a few hours.
Will that give us time for the refitting?
Neverland asked.
If necessary, the Brumgas can start the job in vac suits,
Frost said.
Assuming we want the Brumgas handling that job.
Would Harper store about traitors in the ranks?
Frost scoffed.
Someone did apparently try to get into my office,
Neverland reminded him.
Mershpaw or someone else.
Fine, my men can do it,
Frost said, starting for the door.
I'll go clear the plan change with the Lord Highest.
But don't tell him why,
Neverland said.
We don't want our guests thinking we're not all friendly, trusting allies together.
Right.
With a tight smile, Frost left the room. Tanim waited another minute, wondering if Neverland would use the intercom to give any more orders. But he merely pulled out some papers and began to study them. Backing away from the grill, she found a place where it was safe to talk.
Allison!
She whispered. Yes, I heard, Allison said. Get back here as quickly as you can. We need to get ready. Tanim felt her muscles tense up.
We're going to battle to save Jack and Dracos.
We're going to save them, Allison said. Hopefully without a battle.
How?
You'll see, Allison said. Trust me. She paused. Trust me, she said again, very softly.